I spoke a lot of Yiddish with my father, and I spoke a lot of German with my mother. With each other, they actually spoke Swedish and Finnish, but also Yiddish and German. It all depended on what it was all about and who was there. And I heard a lot of Russian, of course, from my father's family, which it's not my mother tongue, but I can manage very well. And it was a good thing that I did, because as a journalist in Finland, it was important. And but somehow Yiddish became, oh yes, and then I went to a Hebrew day school after I had finished my primary school. I had about an hour in between, and then I went to the Cheder, and all the teachers were from Israel, and everything was in Hebrew, so I still speak fairly good Hebrew, on top of everything else. Then, of course, I had to learn French, which was a very good thing. I went to school in England partly, which explains my accent, of course, and studied in partly also in England. And added French and a lot of Latin in those days. For a humanist, mandatory. And then I added Hungarian and Estonian, which at the Helsinki University, where I took my master's degree.
And those are both related to Finnish? Sort of.
They are related to Finnish, but remotely, particularly Hungarian. You don't understand it, but you see from the structure of the language that they are related. You think that you understand Estonian, but you don't, because they too are remotely. It's a language you have to learn, because there are so many words which sound alike and look alike, but mean something else. For instance, surra in Finnish means to mourn. Surra in Estonia means to die. So unless you know terrible mix-ups if you don't know exactly what you're talking about. But it was mandatory in my days, so, but they were languages which were more sort of not used, because they were under Russian occupation, particularly Estonian. Who spoke Estonian in those days? And but I never thought that any language which I learned would have been in vain. On the contrary, all the languages that I knew that, first of all, they would open the culture and the people to me, and secondly, they would also widen my horizons, and that they have indeed. And that was that. But I can tell you something, that when I was working in my basic profession, the Finnish Broadcasting Company was always very pleased when I got an assignment somewhere, who knows where, because they knew that they never needed to pay for an interpreter.